Hi, my name's Chris Lee. I'm a senior information analyst in Nottingham, doing a large amount of mental health stuff and kind of like national returns and commissioning type stuff. And
Okay.
before that, I had a large number of kind of BI or data warehouse type roles. So maybe more of a technical type background than an analytical type background, which I
Sure.
think is probably going to show in the presentation.
No, that's absolutely perfect for today. So yeah, thanks very much. Go ahead.
Okay. So watch me share the wrong screen by mistake. That'll be good.
I'll let you
That'll be
know.
good. I've made out I have all these skills and can't even manage that successfully. That's what we want to
It's
see.
it's looking good so far. You just need to pop it into presentation mode and then you'll be good to go.
Sorry, this is here we go. Yeah, I'm beginning. Here we go.
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, can everyone see that okay? Because I've certainly
Yes.
got the red line round the edge of everything.
Yeah, looks good.
Magic. Okay, so my presentation today is how to automatically back up SSRS reports. I've already introduced myself, so the structure that I'd like to follow is just very quickly, what is SSRS? And then to kind of drill down a bit further into what problem are we trying to solve and kind of more why does that problem matter? And then a little bit of the technical aspects of how SSRS reports work behind the scenes, because we need to know about that to be able to automate the backing them up. And then how do you move from knowing about that to creating like a fully automated solution to do the backing up? And then any questions. And what I'm hoping is that, so I'll run through the presentation, and then when we get to the point of the fully automated solution, I'll present the slide, and then I'll show a bit of the code as well for how that works. Because I've really heavily commented the code, so it should have like a nice logical kind of flow to it, and it should be really clear what each bit's doing. But then certainly the hope from my perspective is then you'd see, well, kind of the nitty-gritty of how does that actually really work. And then we'll move on to like a conclusion and any questions. But if at any point, if something is unclear or you'd like more clarification on something, then we can absolutely kind of do that as we go along as well. Okay, so first of all, and this and no, sorry, I'll move this to there. Okay, sorry. So first of all, what is SSRS? So SSRS is a really widely used piece of reporting software that allows you to connect to all kinds of different data sources. Like here, I've just said just kind of Excel spreadsheets and SQL Server databases, but there's the capacity there to connect to kind of any number of kind of different database types and services. And to me, at least, what makes SSRS important is how widely deployed and utilized it is. So, for example, it's stuff like Power BI and Tableau might be able to create far fancier things than SSRS does, and I would argue they definitely do. But SSRS, I feel that you'll find to some degree in most organizations, and most organizations I've worked in certainly have a very high number of SSRS reports. and then it becomes then a matter of how do you manage that sheer volume. So it creates interesting problems that way. And so, yes, so what SSRS can essentially do is just kind of like regular data tables, matrices, which are for all intents and purposes equivalent to what a pivot table is in Excel, and a wide array of different charts, so kind of like bar charts, pie charts, all the standard charts that would be broadly equivalent to something like Excel. And then but then what makes SSRS different from something like Excel is that you'd access your SSRS reports from a web portal, usually that it'd be kind of internal to an organization, and then you'd then access it almost like you would a web page. And admittedly, my little demo SSRS reports are not fancy at all, but to just, if you've never used it, to give you a sense of how that would work in practice. So this is like a little web portal and an annual sales report, and immediately below it is an example, is just a very, very basic but easy to fit on a screenshot bit of kind of like how annual sales would work in practice. So this year, clearly my fictitious business has managed to make £1 million in sales. So I suppose well done me. But yeah, just to show you what an SSRS report would look like in practice if you've never seen it. But of course, you can do something way more fancy than this. Okay, so moving on from what SSRS is, we'll now, if it changes slide, which it seems hesitant to do. Oh, here we go. So what problem are we trying to solve? Okay, so really what we're attempting to do is that we're attempting to solve two problems. The first one of these is the first issue we have is that SSRS doesn't, in and of itself, doesn't have an inbuilt solution for backing up of report files. And so why is that a problem? Why that's a problem is that then if somebody makes a change, especially if that change is in error, then it's really going to overwrite what was already there. And so say if you overwrote what was already there with the wrong thing, or you implemented a change incorrectly, then what you're going to do is that you're going to overwrite what's already there. And then unless you've kind of manually taken your own backup, it's then going to be a tremendous amount of work to then, to then reverse that and to get back the original and correct it. So that's a problem because it then, if you make a mistake, which is easy to do when you're dealing with a large number of reports, then you have the potential that you're creating a large amount of extra work for yourself. And so then the second issue is that, well, there are solutions that will sort this, like Git, for example, and other kind of forms of version control, which are essentially systems that help you to store and manage the history of kind of codes and reports. So basically, what version control does, it'll almost, the clue's in the title. It'll save all the different versions of something that you've worked on, and it'll give you a system for then kind of like rolling back changes and stuff, as you need it. But I'm going to suggest that the problem with that, or certainly the problem with that in practice, is that then if you're gonna use version control for your reports and your work, you're adding kind of like extra manual steps that analysts and people are then going to have to take, and that to get them familiar with all of this, it's extra steps and it's extra training. And if people have a workflow, if you like, that they're happy with, then it's just adding it's just adding a certain amount of extra work on top of that, which maybe is going to make their job more difficult. And so, when confronted with these two problems, well, what I started looking into was would it be possible to make something automated that could sit in the background and would then automatically kind of back up the changes that are made to SSRS reports and would then allow us to roll back stuff as we need to. So rather than having kind of like additional manual steps, that then analysts wouldn't have to change anything and they'd have a system that would just take care of the backing up for them rather than them having to do anything extra or anything new. And so, yeah, so basically kind of like the next few slides are really going to be about the practicalities of how a system would work like that in practice, and then like how we implemented it as a trust. Okay, so there we go. So how SSRS reports work behind the scenes. Okay, so if we look at the top example here, this will show you what you have to contend with, and that is so all the reports get saved into a report server database, and what they do is that each report that you'd see on the screen gets saved as something like this. Which is what image format looks like in a database. And basically, it's a format which, in and of itself, you can't do anything with. So all it is basically just kind of like a really, really, really kind of binary looking collection of kind of like random looking characters and numbers and little symbols. And then of course, when you're then trying to automate that and be like, how do I work with this? It's like, oh no, this looks impossible. But what you can do is that to turn it back into XML, which is basically what your RDL files and your SSRS reports are, is that you can perform a series of conversions. And the logic for, oh heavens, sorry, I'm going to have to go back one. Sorry. That was me clicking unnecessarily, sorry. And it's so in this query here, it then allow you to take what's in the contents field, and then you'd convert it to binary and then to XML and then to varchar, and then what you do is you then end up with something along the lines of this, which is what we want, which is basically an XML type format, and then even though the example I've used here isn't terribly interesting, it's just kind of the opening part of one. It's then you have something that's then human readable that you can work with, and then is in a format what is then kind of exportable, and then all you really need is then kind of a surrounding kind of process in place, an automatic process that can then kind of pick up on all that kind of human readable stuff that you've generated and can then kind of like export it somewhere. So once you've reached kind of this point here where you have it in this format, you're kind of halfway there. So you have it back to something human readable, but you just need like the surrounding automation to finish it off and make it do what you want it to do. Okay, so how we sorted out the rest so we have the top bit here sorted out, which is well, the top two bits really, which is to find the reports we want to extract and to transform them into a format where we can extract them. which is essentially the turning them into XML. And then how we implemented that in practice was that we had it as a regular process, and then we were just exporting the ones that had been modified, exporting the reports even that we'd modified within the last 24 hours, so that then so that then we were just then, and so that it was then a very quick job to do, and that we'd have all the most recent round of changes saved. So then having those two things taken care of, the finding the reports and doing the transforming, then the only part that remained was to have some C# code that would then go down the list of these reports, and then kind of grab the XML, turn them into RDL files, which is what SSRS uses, and then it would timestamp them so that we'd know kind of the date, we'd have the date in place against the change. And so how that would work in practice would be something along the lines of this. And so that I'm not, and again, so that I'm not using kind of any of our actual reports, this is just kind of my fictitious kind of like an annual sales report, but just with changes over time. So that then if you wanted to, if you decided like everything after the 8th of December was wrong, that you could then just kind of go to your 8th of December report, and then you could just reinstate that one, and and then you wouldn't have to worry about these. So that's how that would work in practice. And what I'm going to do at this point is that there we go. So what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to bring up Visual Studio real quick, and I'm going to give you a whistle stop tour because I've said like surrounding C# code to make it work. But then this will just be a very, very quick kind of high level whistle stop tour of then how that would work in practice, because this is the kind of the code that we use to make that possible. Okay, so the first thing that you have to do is that you have to point it at a report server database, which is defined here. So you have to say where the report server is and the report server name. And then we use a trusted connection. So whoever runs it, it just uses like your credentials to authenticate. So you don't have to type anything in. And then we have a SQL query here, which after it's established the connection, it then runs this. So what we do is, if you look here, we grab the report name, and then you see the get date here, which then which is then added onto the end of the name. We then look at we then have this logic here to define kind of what folder on the network we're gonna push it to. And then we have the very nice familiar kind of conversion logic here, which then does all the nice converting to XML and then to varchar. And so then this bit is this bit is just defining what it's called and stuff, and is basically irrelevant. That doesn't really do anything terribly useful. And then what we've got is that we've got a nice bit of like recursion here, so that all this is doing is saying that like for all of the reports that we've defined that we want to extract, push them here. So this is like a network drive location, and then push them to this path location, which we define in our SQL up here. And then the name again is what we define up here in our SQL. So then essentially what we've got is that the SQL does the thinking bit, if you like, in terms of what we're going to call stuff, what we want to extract, and then all the C# code is doing is essentially doing the doing bit. So the thinking is in the SQL and the doing is all in C# code. And then just like little bits of kind of boilerplate C# logic to just check to see if like the folders already exist and stuff, and to make sure it doesn't do anything silly. Yeah, and then just a little bit more sort of boilerplate C# logic to say when stuff has been completed. And then so yeah, hopefully what I'm hoping is that that was meant to be like a whistle stop tour, but I'm hoping that I haven't missed out a tremendous amount along the way there, because how it was designed, or certainly I was hoping to design it, was as something where because it's very clear what it's trying to do, I'm hoping that the code is also very easy to follow, because what it's just attempting to do is, rather than do loads of different things, it's just hopefully attempting to do kind of one useful thing in particular, but to do it really well. So hopefully that kind of makes it easier to follow. So because it's not kind of jumping all around the place, it's sort of just trying to do kind of one background thing really well. So, okay, so at this point, what I'm going to do is that I'm kind of run out of steam somewhat at that point. So are there any questions, please? Sorry.
Run out of steam. I don't know whether anybody has any questions in the room. There's just a comment in on Menti, and this person says it might be obvious, but why did you develop this approach? So so presumably you encountered problems with version control, and
Yeah,
maybe some mistakes being made, and this is presumably has improved everything for you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, I should have said that. No, that's absolutely
That's
right.
fine.
What happened uh, was that yeah, and I'm not going to say anything bad, but what happened was that as a trust, what we do is that we have in terms of like our analyst layer, we have the full spectrum in terms of kind of like previous experience and ability levels, and loads and loads and loads of other things. And what we found is that the initial hope was to implement the version control, to implement Git, right? And some people got on really, really, really well with it. And some people, even at the training level, the feedback was that basically like we don't like this. We just want to go back to like doing it how we were doing it. And so the feeling was that in a lot of ways, that's kind of fair enough. And so it's how do you make it so that they can keep doing that if they wish to, but that you kind of get rid of the potential downsides.
Yeah.
And so basically this was put in place almost like a guardrail to make sure the kind of them being allowed to do that, which we wanted to do, right, didn't kind of go wrong. So that basically they could carry on doing exactly what they wanted, and then it would. And then to them, their experience would be no different, but we'd have that in the background, kind of sorting stuff out for them.
That makes sense, because you don't really want to sort of stifle people's enthusiasm to want to improve things and change things and try things, but equally you want to be able to protect something which is a robust. Well, you want to have a robust kind of approach and mechanism to version control. And I say it sounds like pretty much an ideal solution, in that you've got it, and people don't really have to do. Presumably, it happens automatically, and people don't have to do anything in order to ensure that their changes are recorded, because it automatically picks them up. So I can see that as being a very useful thing to do, and I can see it as being an experience as well, sort of a common problem, I suppose. Common problem is you don't necessarily you have changes. Some of them are correct, some maybe not as you'd like them to be, and this allows you to have a record of what's happened, the story of the code, the story of how the reporting has developed in a particular way. No, that sounds good.
This is it, and it's this is it, and it's also giving, yeah, and it's what it's hopefully doing as well, is it's giving people the freedom, because if something bad does happen, the hope, certainly in my head, was that it then means that there isn't really a cost to that, because you really can kind of like roll back immediately if you want to. So it then means the kind of a class of problems, certainly a class of problems that we had, then doesn't really exist anymore, or it doesn't exist in a meaningful way.
Yeah, this has to be a common problem across many organisations as well, and just creating that safety, I suppose, for analysts to be able to sort of develop their skills and their ideas and potential improvements as well for reporting, but in a way that protects the quality of the code and the story behind it. Someone has commented and is asking if you have a link to the code, and is it in fact open source?
Oh, well, what it is, right, is that yeah, what we did was that I spoke to I spoke to our deputy head of information about this exact issue, and what he said is that we're 100% up for sharing it, and all I had to do was I just went through the code, and where it has our internal server names, all I had to do was just substitute in test server, which is just kind of like a random name. And then other than that, I would be quite happy to, because I've got it in my downloads folder now. So what I could do, if it's all right, and if it's not kind of the wrong way to do it, is that I'd be quite happy to just put it into the chat now, and then it could just be kind of grabbed by anybody who'd like it.
That sounds, yeah, that sounds perfect. Some people can't see the chat, so what I can do is change it later. I'll just, as one or two people are putting comments on the in the questions, I'll share my screen. I've a couple we've just covered, but I will share my screen because there's just one or two more points which have been raised, Chris. So we have someone here who's saying, well, you can see I've highlighted it. So does it back up files every a certain number of hours, or only if changes are made? It could be made it could be hard to find where to roll back to if there's a lot of unchanged files. So I suppose that's specified in the code that you use, but could you answer that one? What does what?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, of course. What we
you.
did, yeah, that's a very good question. What we did is so what we have kind of like in the where clause, right, of our SQL statement, what we do is that we have a look back period defined. And so what it does is that it absolutely doesn't back everything up. What it does is it looks at and this is me not being clear, is it looks at the modified date. And so basically it's only going to back up the things that have changed like within the interval that you define. So what we do is that at present, we find the easiest thing to do is that we run it with a 24-hour look back period each morning. And then it just looks in the modified date. So it only picks up things that have changed like within the last 24 hours. So 99% of reports stay exactly the same and it just ignores those ones. And then it just quickly whizzes through all the ones that have a modified date like within the last day.
Right.
But
Okay.
what you can do
So,
though is that you could always shift that look back period. Like if you had a large number of reports that are being changed like multiple times a day, it certainly doesn't have to be a 24-hour look back period. You could always, you could always change that to like the last 12 hours or the last 6 hours if you particularly wanted to. It's not good. It wouldn't break anything to do that.
right. Okay. That's really helpful. So I lost everybody for a second. Then it said beep beep beep. I'm trying to get you back into the meeting, which is always a bit disturbing when I'm hosting this. But I'm definitely present and correct-ish. So Chris, did you look at this question here, which says
I'm sorry.
looking up storing multiple copies of unchanged files. Is this the one that you've just been talking about? Or was that answered by what you've just been talking about?
Kind of. So
Yeah.
so what we did is uh, the how we set it up for a variety of reasons was that we only do the backing up of ones that have been changed. So what we do
Right.
is
Okay.
but what we found as well is that there was a degree of interest at our end, maybe, right, in wouldn't it be interesting if we could back up everything? But what we found is that that's always going to take too long and we don't really need to. So in
Yeah.
terms, so it's always going to be easier and quicker and stuff to just go for the ones that have been
Been
modified.
changed.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And what kind of in the area of work that you are in, what kind of data is it that you mostly use? What kind of, or is it just like a whole range of data sets which you have on your warehouse or access to? That's just me
Yeah.
being interested in and nosy.
Oh no, of course. What it is that it's a very, very large amount of kind of like so like referrals in and bed days and activity data and some finance data, but that's kind of treated separately, and then it's and a fairly substantial amount of diagnostic type stuff. So
Right. Okay.
real, so because I've worked in like mental health and acute and there's a fair amount of crossover, you know, obviously in terms of the different types of activity and that. It's just that with a slightly different focus on the diagnostic end towards mental health.
Okay, that makes sense. So I think there's a lot of people who use similar or same data sets, you know, field names and so on. It's always an issue when you're transferring some other code. So but it does feel like the solution that you've been working on works well. And that others could definitely benefit from it if they don't have already. Tracy in the comments has said, "Thank you, Chris. Brilliant solution." Version control can be troublesome. Indeed, version control is always troublesome, and having a solution which is automated is always much more effective than relying on individuals to follow certain procedures, which may or may not happen, or may not happen consistently. So I would just like to, I'll stop sharing my screen. So if there's no more comments from our lovely audience today, I would just like to say thank you again, Chris, for sharing that with us. I think that's really useful, and I will share with everybody the code or the links that you've offered to share with people afterwards. So I know that, so I think some people can see the chat and some people can't. And also some people, or somebody after the last huddle suggested a way in which I could allow everybody to see the chat, and I haven't done that yet. So how lazy am I? So I must do that for maybe for the next huddle. So Chris, have you got anything else you'd like to say before I sort of move on to my final little bits?
Oh, that's okay. Am I so? Yeah, I'm one of the people who can't see the chat. So is it okay
Right,
if I just email you the code after this? Is that all right?
Absolutely.
Magic.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will just share my screen again because just a couple of things to finish up with. And I would just say, ooh, here we go. In the next few huddles, we've got the NHS Horizons are coming to talk to us about their work. We have a really excellent presentation around demand forecasting for executives and professionals. And we have the strategy unit, Paul Seamer, is going to talk to us about estimating the impact of population and morbidity changes on healthcare utilisation, and we're going to having a session on intelligence functions as well, and many more, in fact, coming up over the next couple of months. Just another reminder to mention at the beginning to get yourself registered for Hacker 2024. That's in Telford International Conference Centre on the 23rd and 24th of July. We have around about 80% of tickets have gone already, so please do register for that. It's an excellent learning opportunity. So many topics and excellent speakers there, and lots of networking opportunities for you as well, just to meet up with everybody. Highly recommend that. So I will stop sharing, and I will just say we'll finish a little bit earlier today, so everyone can go and have their lunch a bit earlier. And thank you again, Chris, for coming today. I very much enjoyed the session that you shared with us today, and thank you everyone for coming, and I'll see everybody in a couple of weeks. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.